The air in the room still feels heavy with unspoken words, even now, years later. It carries the ghost of a silence that screamed louder than any argument could ever hope to. That weight used to press down on my chest, a constant dull ache that had become my unwelcome companion for weeks, then months, then years. I often find myself staring out the window, lost in a distant point, beyond the pain pretending to be absorbed in some mundane task. But I know better. I always know better. I knew the subtle shifts in his demeanor, the slight hesitation before he met my gaze, the way his laughter no longer reached his eyes. It was a slow, insidious poison dripping into the cup of our life together. And I had been drinking it, unsuspecting at first, then with a growing, dreadful certainty that something fundamental had shattered within us. I remember those days with a clarity that still unnerves me, a painful replay of every glance, every lie, every moment of cowardice. The memory is a relentless current, always pulling me back to the precipice of that defining mistake. And the hardest truth to swallow, the one that still makes my stomach churn and my throat tighten, is that I was the one holding the vial. I was the one who poured the poison. I was the architect of our downfall, the one who chipped away at the foundation of what we had so carefully built, brick by brick, with a deceitful smile and a trembling heart. It began subtly, as these things often do. A feeling of stagnation, a quiet dissatisfaction that settled deep in my bones like the autumn chill. Mark and I had been together for so long that the edges of our individual selves had started to blur. Our routines were comfortable, yes, too comfortable perhaps, but they were also slowly suffocating the very essence of who I was. The passion that once burned so brightly had dwindled to a faint ember, a warmth that was barely perceptible in the vast, cold expanse of our everyday lives, leaving me craving a fire I no longer knew how to rekindle. I remember staring at him across the kitchen table one morning as he read the newspaper, absorbed in the world beyond our apartment walls. His face was familiar, every line, every shadow a testament to years of shared history. And yet, in that moment, he felt like a stranger, a kind stranger. Yes, a good man, undoubtedly, but a stranger nonetheless. A dull ache of loneliness bloomed in my chest, a strange paradox, given that he was right there beside me, his hand occasionally reaching for mine in a gesture of habit rather than fervent affection. I wanted something more, something different, something to shake me out of the comfortable stupor I had fallen into. I wanted to feel alive again, to feel desired, to feel seen. Not just as Mark's partner, a quiet fixture in his life, but as Alex, a vibrant, complex woman with her own desires and dreams, separate and distinct. It was a dangerous wish, a selfish craving born out of a quiet desperation that I was too afraid to voice. I never told Mark how I truly felt, never articulated the growing chasm between us, the silent despair that gnawed at my insides. Instead, I let it fester, allowed the resentment to take root, a bitter seed, watered by my own silence, my own inaction. I convinced myself that voicing these feelings would only hurt him, that it would be kinder to endure my quiet unhappiness. That was my first lie, a justification for what was to come. And then Julian entered the picture. He was a colleague, a new face in the office, radiating an energy that felt like a splash of cold water on my complacent existence. He laughed easily, his eyes crinkling at the corners, in a way that made me feel instantly at ease, made me feel seen. He listened with an intensity that made me feel as though my every word held profound importance. He saw me. He truly saw me. Or at least that is what I desperately convinced myself of in those intoxicating early days. Our conversation started innocently enough: lunch breaks, coffee runs after work. We talked about projects, about life, about everything and nothing. He asked about my dreams, my fears, things Mark and I had stopped discussing years ago, or perhaps never really discussed in the first place. Not with that level of raw, unfiltered vulnerability. With Julian, I felt a spark reignite, a forgotten flame flickering back to life, a thrill I hadn't realized I was so desperately missing. It was intoxicating, a forbidden fruit that tasted sweeter with every stolen glance, every lingering touch, every hushed conversation carried out in hushed tones away from prying eyes. The guilt was a faint whisper, at first easily silenced by the rush of dopamine that flooded my senses whenever Julian was near. I told myself it was harmless, just friendship, a simple camaraderie with someone who understood me in a way Mark no longer seemed to, or perhaps never did. I told myself it was innocent, a way to fill a void. But the lines began to blur quickly, too quickly. A late-night text turned into a series of texts. A casual dinner with colleagues morphed into a private conversation that stretched late into the evening, long after everyone else had left the restaurant. The physical distance between us grew shorter, our hands brushing accidentally, then intentionally, a subtle electric current passing between us. The first kiss was a shock, a jolt of electricity that ran through my entire body, awakening parts of me I thought had long since died. It was wrong, terribly, terribly wrong, and yet in that moment, it felt so profoundly right, a desperate grab for connection, a dangerous rebellion. It was a betrayal of everything I held dear, everything I had built with Mark, but I pushed that knowledge deep down, stuffing it into a dark corner of my mind, hoping it would simply disappear into the shadows. The double life began then, a meticulously crafted web of lies that grew more intricate with each passing day, each stolen moment. My phone became an extension of my arm, always within reach, always guarded, its screen turned away from Mark's casual glance. My schedule became a complex puzzle of excuses and fabricated appointments, carefully choreographed to ensure no overlap, no suspicion. Every innocent question from Mark felt like an interrogation. Every knowing glance, a direct accusation. The guilt became a constant companion, a heavy cloak I wore everywhere, a suffocating presence. It weighed down my shoulders, pressed against my chest, making it difficult to breathe. I would lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, as Mark slept peaceful and oblivious beside me, and a wave of self-loathing would wash over me. How could I do this to him? To us? He was a good man, a kind man, a loyal man. He deserved none of this deceit, none of this pain. But the thrill, the excitement, the feeling of being desired by Julian was a potent antidote to the guilt, a temporary reprieve that I desperately clung to. Julian made me feel young again, vibrant, alive, special. He made me believe I was worthy of passion, of adventure, of a different kind of happiness, a happiness I thought I could never find with Mark. We would meet in secluded cafes, in quiet parks and hotel rooms that felt sterile and impersonal, yet were filled with the intoxicating energy of our stolen moments. Each encounter was a tightrope walk, a dangerous dance on the precipice of discovery. The fear was always there, a cold knot in my stomach. But it was also paradoxically part of the thrill, a heightened sense of living that I hadn't experienced in years, a perverse justification for the risks I was taking. I started to withdraw from Mark emotionally, physically, intellectually. Our conversations became superficial, our intimacy non-existent. He noticed, of course. He asked if something was wrong,